But it's not how life works.
All
right, my man.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
Go take it. Good seeing you, Chris. Thanks.
All right, Jesse. Always a pleasure. Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation, where we expose the political game. Tonight, don't take the bait. 2 viral videos related to 2 major conflicts. Both are relevant for all the wrong reasons. First, you see what the president posted depicting a future Trump Gaza?
Tunnels coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one.
Now, if you find the video appealing, appalling, hysterical, or horrendous, you're right. But no matter how it hits you, don't take the bait. Why? This isn't going to happen. Yes, the President of the United States thinks it's a good idea to send the most extreme kind of gentrification porn that he can out to the world. Yes, it is insensitive to the suffering and those who are and would be displaced. But it's not going to happen. We are looking for millions and billions to cut here within our own spending with DOGE, right? And you think Congress is going to appropriate the hundreds of billions or trillions it would take to make a Trump Gaza, and that the Arab neighbors would allow American control in a place surrounded by terrorists who hate us? Not happening. More importantly, it's a distraction from what is happening, which is suffering there in Gaza, where men, women, and children are not luxuriating with hummus like skinny Elon, but in the grip of Hamas. And in Israel, they're burying babies while he's playing with this and desperate for a better tomorrow. So don't take the bait. Don't let our leaders and pod people play games with a stupid video. Focus on what happens to end the war, which is now in a fragile state of ceasefire. Don't take the bait. Second, what Trump and his administration have been saying about Ukraine and Russia doesn't make much sense. It's almost as if they have the 2 leaders mixed up, publicly calling Zelensky a dictator, blaming Ukraine for the war, discussing all the casualties in Russia and alleged war crimes by Ukraine's army, ruling out NATO membership for Ukraine before negotiations started, and at the UN on Monday, the U.S. voting with Russia against a resolution condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It feels very WTF. But the administration says this is how Trump gets Russia to the table and to make a deal. But it is so bass-ackwards that it fuels the feeling, fictive or fickle fact, that Trump has some weird affinity for this Putin guy. After all, he threatens all our friends, right? Today, the 25% tariff on the EU. We'll talk about it tonight, but there go all my secret ingredients from Italy. Harsh on Canada, Mexico, and all those suspicions were confirmed today when the fruit of his loins, Junior, proved that the apple does not fall far from the Trump tree. Did you hear this?
I honestly can't imagine anyone in their right mind picking Ukraine as an ally when Russia is the other option. Honestly, if anything, the U.S. should have been sending weapons to Russia. I mean, just think about it. Massive nuclear power loaded with natural resources everyone needs. Literally the biggest country on the planet.
Hold on. Now, I know a lot of you want me to keep playing it. What are you doing? That's just the good part. You see how crazy what he said was? Let him go full fool. We knew Russia had something on the Trumps. Who else would talk like that? You know why it fits so perfectly into this Trump loves Russia narrative? It's because it was made to be that way. That, my brothers and sisters, that is a fake video. Welcome to the world of AI, and it's just getting started. Don't bail him out. You've been red-pilled. Here we go. Who says it's fake? Don Jr. Oh, but the Trumps lie. Well, his podcast's executive producer says that didn't happen. Well, people lie for the Trumps. Okay, did you listen to the whole episode? Don Jr. never says what you just heard in that clip. Now me, full transparency, I can't listen to Don Jr. that long. But my producer, Ben, he gets paid to do that. And he verified it, and he is never wrong. Just ask him. Nevertheless, this post spread like wildfire, duping many prominent social media accounts, including a fact-checking account run by the DNC. Why? Partly because they're lazy. And there's a difference between running a podcast or a social media account and being a journalist. But mostly because too many don't want to question what they want to be true. Don't take the bait. Don't let people divide you with fakery when we need a fight over what is a fact. Like, why the president has it in for Ukraine. Why does he say that we've given Ukraine $350 billion when it's half that? And the amount was spread over 3 years. Oh, because it's so much money. Really? We spend that much and more on things that matter a lot less. Like what? The cost of the Gerald Ford class aircraft carriers, which are often deemed sitting ducks in the drone era of warfare. Did you know they went from $13 billion to $120 billion for the program due to technical issues? The F-35, that plane has gone from $200 billion to $2 trillion for one kind of fighter jet. Don't take the bait. If it were about the money, there are plenty of bigger concerns. It's about one stupid phone call with Zelensky that got Trump in trouble. That's what it's all about. Here's my proof. Look at the timeline. Look at that point in time of that phone call, okay? And compare it to the GOP posture on Ukraine. Before that call, everybody was all in. I'd been fired at the time, so I was watching it at home like the rest of you. Yellow and blue everywhere. They're like us. They're fighting against the oppressor like America did in the 1700s. That was the Republicans and Democrats. After that call, they all go bad on Ukraine. You know, they're very corrupt, as if Zelensky was part of the Russian extended oligarchy in Ukraine. No, he was elected to fight it. That's why so much of the attacks on Ukraine seem off, because they are. So don't take the bait. You don't need fake Don Jr. You don't need that. I get how tempting it is to attack Trump's vainglorious videos and his son's ridiculous rants. But don't fall for fakery. Stay focused on the facts. There's plenty to worry about. So let's talk to someone I turn to in times of worry and distress for perspective. Bill O'Reilly joins us now. Got a lot of people with that Don Jr. video.
Yeah, not me. Dusty sent it to me, and I sent it, okay. People believe what they want to believe. That was a good point you made. They don't care really if it's true or not. They want it to be true. They want it to be true. And then when it turns out to be false and they fall for it, they go, that's okay. Tomorrow's another day, like the play Annie. The sun will come up tomorrow. But the overarch is that AI is going to make it so much harder for people to get legitimate information. And with the media being so corrupt, generally speaking, boy, it's a dire future as far as information flow is concerned, in my opinion.
Do you agree with my analysis of why Trump puts out a video like Trump Gaza? That he knows that it's just going to drive people crazy? And there's probably a little bit of him that likes all those golden statues?
Well, I actually talked to him about this in person. So what Donald Trump believes is you're never going to have peace in that region unless there's prosperity, number one. Okay? Number two, the fastest, easiest way to get to prosperity is to build the coastline, the Mediterranean coastline, and employ a lot of people in the building and the servicing of resorts. Number three, he believes that Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and other very wealthy Arab nations would probably do the investment, not the United States. So he's throwing that out as a possibility. That's what he's doing. Now, if you don't want to believe it, you won't believe it. But I talked to him about it, and that was the vision way before any of this, by the way, way before he went public with Gaza and we're going to run it, which we're not. Okay? He just wanted to scare Hamas. But if you step back, that would be the fastest way to prosperity in that region. I agree with you. It's never going to happen. The terrorists will prevent it from happening. But if it could happen, that would be a benefit to the poor Gazans.
Now, I have no problem with the President of the United States or anybody making the Arab Brotherhood finally start showing their brotherly love and spend some money and actually do something for that
love,
region.
It would be money.
Well, whatever it was, it would be at least
money.
It would be love to Israel because they wouldn't have to occupy it and spend their money and their protection on it anymore. Let the Arab Brotherhood take care of their own, like they always say they want to, but never do.
Well, you've been there, I've been there. It's a very, very nice area. Take out all the poverty and all the terror, and you have the Mediterranean coast there, nice beaches there. It's accessible to Europe and to the Arab world, and it could happen. Lebanon was once that way. Beirut was a very, very sought-after resort, okay? And that's Trump's vision. So whether you want to believe it or not, that's what he told me long before this whole thing erupted.
Yeah, I'm just saying all the golden calves he put in that video, I think, speak to a little something else. Help me understand again, because I'm not sharp enough to pick up on it. Explain to me how bashing Ukraine and talking about them like you were really talking about the truth about Russia helps this situation.
Okay. So you obviously didn't read my column on Sunday or my message of the day on Monday. Putin holds all the cards. So you're going in to a negotiation, you have no strengths at all. United States and Europe. Putin holds every card. Biden couldn't even get him to pick up the phone. Did you know that? Putin wouldn't take Biden's calls for 2 years. Trump wants Putin at the table. That's what this mineral deal was all about. That'll be signed tomorrow. It's a good deal for Ukraine and the United States because it puts the United States physically in Ukraine. Makes it harder for bad Vlad to misbehave. But anyway, the overarch is, if I can get Vlad to the table, I can reason with him. And Vlad is suffering, true, but Putin does not care about his people at all. He cares about himself. That's it. So the strategy is flatter him, make provocative statements about his enemy, and co-opt him into stopping this savage war. That is the strategy. Will it work? I think it might.
I don't understand the holds all the cards part. International rebuke, economy's in the tank, inflation is in the high 20s, unemployment is there, he's recycling injured warriors after emptying his prisons. There are all kinds of reports of revolt among the citizenry despite no media there and no access. Why do you believe that Putin can just continue to despotically go on his way without any kind of recourse?
Because Ukraine can't beat him on the battlefield and nobody else is going to enter the war. Ukraine can't beat him. They don't have the strength to beat Putin. And I said,
well, they can't, but he hasn't really.
People.
But he hasn't put it on Ukraine either, though, Bill. You know, people talk about it like, hey, Ukraine's not trying to take over Russia.
But Ukraine's going to lose more ground. They've already lost 11% of their territory. Okay? They've got North Koreans now backing them up. Putin doesn't care about anybody. Look, my next book is Confronting Evil. Who's on the cover?
And the guy's on the cover.
There he is. There he is. He's like Hitler in the sense that he doesn't care about human life at all. So if he has to kill a quarter of the Russian population and the Ukraine population, that's what he's going to do. And no one at this point in history is going to meet him on the battlefield militarily. No one. So Putin knows that. China's propping him up. North Korea's propping him up. And so he can continue this for another 5 years if he wants to. And that's why he holds the negotiating cards.
All right, one other thing. I don't understand tariffs the way the president does. I get them as a tactic. And give me a little bit of due. When he was saying what he was saying about Mexico and Canada, I told people, don't judge the talk, judge the walk. Let's see what happens, okay? Now, with the EU, he just went right to imposing the tariff. How does this work out in our favor when you and I both understand the basic economics of tariffs and what they're going to mean to pricing on the consumer side in the United States and therefore inflation?
Listen to me, Cuomo. I don't know. It could go south fast. It could go south fast. This is a gamble. Now, Trump has already backed away. You made your point, Cuomo. Trump has already backed away from Mexico and Canada. He's already going, well, maybe we're not going to do it so fast. Next Tuesday, he could change the EU equation. This is who he is. So he believes that this is a negotiating tactic that'll get a better trade situation for the USA, and more money will come into America because they don't want a trade war, they being the EU or anybody else. I don't know if it's going to work. I mean, I listen to these stupid panels on cable news. None of these pinheads know anything. They do, it's not going to work. You don't know. But I will say
that's why I don't do panels.
Gamble.
Yes, look, I'm okay with it as the gamble.
Wall Street doesn't like it.
No, they don't. Look, I mean, that's one of the untold stories here. I'm a Main Street guy, not a Wall Street guy, but he has not had a great run with the stock market since he came in. He usually likes to brag about it. Let me ask you something, Bill. I have to go out of my way on this show, as you know, to accommodate whatever you say because my bosses like you better than they like me. But what makes you think that freed from my boss's leash, that I won't eat you like a pizza if we're standing on the same stage for any length of time, like we are going to do at the end of March, also known as the Doomsday Surprise for Bill O'Reilly with the three Americans, which I like to think of as solve the world's problems in one night.
All right, I'm making a sports analogy to comfort Stephen A. Smith. Boston Celtics, Atlanta Hawks. Okay? The Celtics are going to win 9 out of 10. I'm the Celtics. You're the Hawks.
Who are you? Are you Robert Parrish?
It's just a matter of innate.
Are you the chief?
That's going way back. That's going way back. It's a matter of innate intelligence. I'm Dominique Wilkins. Okay? And I'm very happy you are. It's a matter of skill set, experience, native intelligence. And if this was a Vegas event, if Jamie Foxx was hawking it, hey, let's go bet every minute, let's bet your money. It would be O'Reilly favored over Cuomo by more than a touchdown, right?
Well, only in a self-love contest. But if you think that you are going to stand on that stage and not wind up jumping into the arms of Stephen A. Smith to save you from the unmitigated attacks that are coming your way, you better eat your Wheaties. Well, Dusty's telling me to lay off you. I'm just teasing. I'm sorry, boss.
We, as the overpriced anchors on network and cable, say every day, we will see. March 30th, Westbury, Long Island. Go to the Westbury Music Fair, BillO'Reilly.com, all of them. Dusty will be there signing autographs in the lobby. Big night.
Yes, she will. She's getting paid for it.
Yep.
Bill O'Reilly, always a pleasure. We'll speak before then, but I hope you're getting ready, brother. My prediction, pain. 4 minutes, 35 seconds. Coming up, Elon Musk showed up today in Trump's first cabinet meeting, and it left most Democrats scratching their heads. I don't know why. What'd you think? He wasn't going to show up. But one Democratic lawmaker who's made it clear he's willing to work with Musk and DOGE. He wants to get things done for you. Member of Congress, California, Ro Khanna. What was his take? What would he change? Next.
look at the world not left and right, but right and wrong. Dealing with the issues that matter to Americans, not the issues that matter to Washington. Is there less of a stigma to not going to college and going into the trades? We give all sides their best argument and then challenge them. Why wouldn't it be better for you guys to do it? That's real journalism.
On Balance with Leland Vittert, weeknights at 9/8 Central, only on NewsNation.
The overall goal here with the DOGE team is to help address the enormous deficit. We simply cannot sustain as a country $2 trillion deficits. The interest rates, just the interest on the national debt, now exceeds the Defense Department spending. We spend a lot on the Defense Department, but we're spending over $1 trillion on interest. If this continues, the country will become de facto bankrupt.
Look at all those dudes looking at Elon like, yeah, welcome to reality. We all know what's happening. The question is, what can be done about it? That was Trump's first cabinet meeting. Member of Congress Ro Khanna, California, Democrat, is one of the few in his party who says, hey, I want to work with Musk and DOGE, whatever makes things better. It's good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Chris.
So first, I don't get the play of being in high dudgeon that Elon Musk is at a cabinet meeting when he's not an official member of the cabinet. Who cares?
Well, that's not my problem. My problem is he's talking about the deficit. We've got a $1.8 trillion deficit. Projected 10 years, it's about $21 trillion. And the Republicans just passed a budget that would add $2.8 trillion to that deficit. So $24.8 trillion. It's sort of like Elon Musk is looking around the house and the couches for the dimes and quarters while Mike Johnson is with the credit card spending thousands of dollars in the stores. I mean, it just doesn't add up. The math doesn't work.
Well, depends which math you want, right? Their counter is, oh, yeah, look at the last time we did the tax cuts. Everybody had $3,000 more in their pocket than they do today. And all that revenue, all that investment, that generated an economy that was much better than what you guys did on your watch.
Chris, we can argue about the economy, but the reality is the numbers are the numbers. Donald Trump added $8 trillion to the deficit. Now, some of that, granted, was COVID funding, but the reality is the tax cuts created a deficit, and both parties have been creating these deficits. So you've got to be straight with the American public. Like, look, Hegseth says I want to cut defense 8%. I start cheering. I've been voting against the Pentagon budget for years because of defense contractors. And then what do House Republicans do? They pass a budget that literally increases the defense budget by $100 billion. So you can't be saying one thing on television and voting a totally different way in Congress.
So you guys don't want tax cuts for the rich. How open are Democrats, and are you going to offer an alternative budget that shows cuts that add up for the American people and get the debt down?
Absolutely. Jon Stewart had a great monologue on this. Start with cutting the subsidies to fossil fuel companies. Start with having Medicare negotiate the pharmaceutical prices. Cut some of the Pentagon defense contracts to the 5 primes. And that's where I said if Musk was serious about that, because he did SpaceX, that people would work with him. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren said that on the defense contracting. Make sure that you're closing some of the tax loopholes. I mean, there are places that the Democrats are willing to cut. Look at Medicare Advantage fraud that's taking place with upbilling. Those are the big ticket items.
No, the entitlements are the big ticket items. And look, all due respect to Stewart, I don't know who writes his stuff. I'm sure he has a great team. But you and I both know not all subsidies are the same, right? There's certain things that are done to get states to get corporate activity there that they desperately need. They're the biggest employers. They put a lot of money into the economy that they could take away and go somewhere else, right? I mean, it's easy for a comedian to make a line out of it, but the reality is a little different, no? And why not go after the entitlements? That's where the money is.
Well, look, the fossil fuel subsidies, though, Of course, those were in 1916 and 1920, and they've got this thing called intangible drilling costs, which basically say that they get to deduct from their taxes any money that is spent on drilling, equipment that's used, labor that's used for drilling, right. Unlike any other industry. I mean, even people who are opposed to the solar tax credits, wind tax credits, I'm for those, but why are you subsidizing the fossil fuel industry? My view is that the Democrats have other places, the negotiation with pharmaceutical companies. I mean, this is something Donald Trump has talked about, that Americans shouldn't be paying more than people in other parts of the world. Let's come together on that. Let's negotiate with the pharma companies to lower those costs.
Well, that is going to be very popular. You know, the only pushback on the subsidies is Democrats have had control of Congress and left those subsidies right where they are. So, you know, it's not like there weren't chances to do it in the past. Let me get your take quickly, Rowan. I always appreciate you on the show. Tariffs on EU, 25%. Unless they're a stunt, as worked with Canada and Mexico, basically, what's your concern?
Why are we tariffing in a blanket way our allies? Here's what I'm for. Have tariffs on China, have strategic tariffs to protect steel and aluminum in this country. I have not been a blanket in criticism of Donald Trump. I said he identified that we were losing too many jobs to China, go after them. He identified the importance of keeping steel in this country, aluminum in this country, fine. But the way he's going about this with blanket tariffs on our allies, on Canada, Mexico, EU, doesn't make sense. And it's undermining the important point he had, which is to rebuild the industrial base in America.
You still have confidence in DOGE? By the way, my critique of DOGE is I love what they're doing. I don't like how they're doing it. They shouldn't have been putting up numbers like this. They should have come to you guys in 60, 90 days and said, here's all the stuff we found, instead of doing this, you know, Twitter by the second kind of, you know, hysteria that they're doing. But are you worried that they pulled down some of their biggest savings that they were bragging about last week?
I am worried that they pulled down 5 things and they got basic facts wrong. Oh, it wasn't an $8 billion contract. It was an $8 million contract. But the biggest thing I was concerned about, and we put out a video where people can see for themselves, Trump voters saying that they were fired. It was a Valentine's Day massacre. They were notified by email, many of them veterans. 30% of the people fired are veterans, and a lot of them are high performers. Now, if they had a rational plan and they said, look, over the next year, we're going to evaluate the performance of people, we're going to look at reorganization, and they came to Congress, that would be one thing. But what they're doing in terms of just mass firing without looking at who's being affected is really hurting people. And I ask for some of these people to be reinstated. I hope some of them will. Many of them voted for Donald Trump and served in Iraq, served in Afghanistan, and actually were extraordinary performers in their reviews. And they just got these emails on February 14th saying they're going to be fired.
Elections have consequences, and they're not always good. Ro Khanna, appreciate you being a fair broker. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, be well, sir. 4 minutes and 30 seconds coming up. So Trump announced yesterday that he'll be selling the $5 million gold card as a path for rich people to become citizens. Today, his administration launched its new Migrant registry, making it clear that if you don't sign up, you could end up behind bars. But could you end up behind bars anyway if you're not here illegally? I still don't get it. But I have 2 guests who do and who want to talk about the good and bad of Gitmo. Next. But hopefully I will after this segment. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced that her department will be running the Migrant registry. Anyone 14 years of age or older must create an online account and must submit their fingerprints and home address to the government. Migrants who fail to register could face fines and imprisonment. But why are they doing this? DHS says that this is going to compel illegal immigrants to leave the country voluntarily. Why? Will this registry have the effect that the administration wants it to? Let's ask retired ICE and Homeland Security Supervisory Special Agent Victor Avila and immigration activist Carlos Eduardo Espina. Good to have you both. Victor, it's good to see you again, my friend. Thank you for being here. Here's what I don't get. I understand you're here illegally. I get it. Law and order. I get it. I don't believe all people who illegally enter are the same, but I don't get the registry. Help me understand. Why would you do this if you're here illegally? And who cares if you're subject to arrest if you don't do it? You're already subject to arrest.
One word that I could sum it up with, and that's vetting, Chris. It's about knowing who these people are. Remember, the processing that happened, especially in the last 4 years, was improper vetting. We don't know who these people are. A lot of them provided the information that they came into this country to a Border Patrol agent or a processing agent. Whatever they said, that was taken at face value. So we need to go back and say, if you're really, really wanting to come into the United States, assimilate, and be part of our community and our country, well, then just come on in. We'll take your fingerprints. We'll vet you. And then you have the opportunity to do it legally. What they're saying that is that if you don't do that, then you're going to bar yourself from ever coming back into the country again.
But are they saying that if you register, you are on a path to citizenship? No. They're just saying if you don't register, they're going to toss you out.
It's not believe me, it's not citizenship, but it's at least a starting point for you at least to start the legal process to come into the country. The other way around, you're gonna void yourself of any opportunity to do that.
Victor, I was distracted by the last part of your answer because of Carlos's shirt. This guy blows me away every time he's on. This is 2 for 2 now. So, Espina, what do you think the impact of this suggestion will be on the population of people who are not here legally? Do you think they'll see this as a hand being extended or a fist?
Well, I don't think, it'll have much success. Like you said, people are already subject to arrest and deportation just for being here illegally. I do see the value in having a list of who's here in the United States. But if you don't provide a pathway with that, people aren't just going to fill it out. So what I think should happen, combining the two ideas Trump had yesterday, the gold card and this registry, why, you fill out this registry, you pay a fine for having entered illegally, 10,000, 20,000, whatever you want it to be. But instead of getting deported, you get forgiven for having entered illegally. And then you get on a path, to legalize. Because I think if you fill out this registry, you've been here for 20 years, have no criminal record, have a family, you're working. What does the United States gain by deporting someone like that? It just doesn't make any sense. And if you're able to legalize the people who are good immigrants, you can focus on those who are committing crimes and who should be deported. But I think this blanket, everyone, 11 million register here, and then we're going to go after you. It just, I don't see the point in it.
Victor, do you think there's any chance that... Go ahead, Victor.
No, I was going to say we could definitely gain a lot of information. We get to gain and weed out, just because you don't have any criminal history, just because you're here illegally and you've never been stopped for or convicted of DUI or theft or whatever, doesn't mean that there's something else in your background. We need to find out. We need to vet you. There's a lot of illegal aliens that have never committed additional crime that are committing a fraud crime because they're using somebody else's social security number. They're using somebody else's tax ID number to be able to work. Believe me, I worked these cases in my career. You just can't blanket it everybody. I agree with that. You can't put them all in the same category. So because you can't do that, you have to do an individual vetting per person, which will weed out the ones that we don't want in this country. I tend to agree a little bit with you that there has to be a program here now. I don't believe it would be citizenship, but maybe there's a visa. There's a work permit, a legal one for you to then remain here. Yeah. Maybe you have to step out of the country initially, but then you're let back in and then you start the process correctly.
Yeah, I believe the registry is called the tax rolls. There's somewhere between a third to a half of people who are working here illegally that the employers don't pay in for them. So they're getting the benefit of sub-market labor, which depresses the whole unskilled labor market, and they're not even paying into the tax rolls. So the tax rolls would be the registry I'd want everybody to sign up for. Carlos, on the subject of Gitmo, there is more reporting now. The pushback to the reporting is Gitmo's fine. We've used it to hold migrants before. The conditions there are fine. And yeah, some people there didn't have criminal backgrounds, but it's still a crime to come in. And we always said, if you're with people who we're looking for, you're going to get arrested as well.
Yeah, I think like we talked about last time I was on here, Gitmo should be reserved for the worst of the worst, as the administration originally said. I think sending people without a criminal record to Guantanamo Bay is just a dangerous, precedent to set. Like you said, we've done it before. I didn't agree with it. Well, I wasn't born when that happened, but nowadays it's happening and I don't agree with it now. And I think Guantanamo should be reserved for the worst of the worst and, not people who just crossed and have no record beyond that.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know who was doing the job? Victor Avila. Working that border, working those cases, keeping us safe, and I appreciate you for it, Victor. Thank you for the perspective. Carlos, you cannot come onto this show, be smarter, younger, better looking, and better dressed than me, okay? This is the last time I'm telling you, okay? You
I'll have to send you one. I'll send you one of these so we can dress the same next time.
I can't pull it off. I'm old. I can't look Rico Suave like that. All right, my friend. Thank you very much for being with me. Victor, thank you very much. We'll continue the conversation. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Up next, the U.S. suffered its first death from measles today in a decade, okay? And it was a kid. All right, it's just one. It happens. No, it really doesn't. Cases of measles do. Dying doesn't. The fact that the kid wasn't vaccinated doesn't matter. Trump's new Health and Human Services Secretary, Bobby Kennedy, isn't that impressed, okay? He says, let's take it easy. Let's relax. I wanted to bring in Dr. Birx. How does she see it?
At Fisher Investments, we may look like other money managers, but we're different.
How so?
We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in our clients' best interest, so we don't sell any commission-based products.
Then how do you make money?
We have a simple management fee, structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Your clients really come first then, huh?
Yes, we make them a top priority by getting to know their finances, family, health, lifestyle, and more.
Wow. Maybe we are different.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
We get cases of measles, but we haven't had a death in 10 years, and we just did. There's an outbreak in Texas. What's an outbreak? 20 are still hospitalized with measles. Is that extraordinary? Yes. Is it without precedent? No. In the cabinet meeting today, President Trump was asked about it, and he turned to Bobby Kennedy Jr. Here's what the new secretary for HHS said.
We are following the measles epidemic every day. I think there's 124 people who have contracted measles at this point in Gaines County, Texas. Mainly, we're told in the Mennonite community, there are 2 people who have died. There have been 4 measles outbreaks this year. In this country last year, there were 16. So it's not unusual. We have measles outbreaks every year.
Is that a fair assessment? Is this one different? Okay. Now, remember, in context, the outbreaks come after measles was declared eliminated from the U.S. in 2000. In recent years, we've seen a spike in cases since the vaccine hesitancy movement has grown. And let's be honest, Bobby Kennedy Jr. helped fuel that. Now, is there a cause for concern in these numbers? Let's ask Deborah Birx, the doctor who helped coordinate the U.S. COVID response. Good to see you again, Doc.
Good to see you.
So tell me what I need to know.
So this is a pretty unique situation right now. With the measles outbreaks we've had in 2023 and early 2024, we're often in communities of people who've come foreign-born, and yes, vaccine hesitancy played a role, but in these communities, these are extreme rural communities. It's why I'm dedicated now to really working on rural healthcare. They don't really have access to healthcare in these rural communities. And this particular community had religious objections to vaccination. We've always had specific communities that have had religious objection to vaccination. And because the rest of our children are immunized, they really form a buffer around those communities so they really don't get exposed to measles because we don't have widespread measles. What worries me is what we're seeing today are people who got infected, children who got infected almost 2 weeks ago. This is a high number of hospitalizations. To lose a child, I just feel for the family. You know, once you're a mom, you just would feel for any mom who had to go through this. No one wants their child to die from a preventable vaccinating disease. For those of us who grew up so long ago, remember, we didn't have access to MMRs. So we had deadly infectious diseases that took our friends. But now today, we shouldn't have that be happening.
But doesn't the word Mennonite explain the whole situation? I mean, it's not that it's COVID-19 hysteria that, Bobby was a part of. This is the Mennonites don't take the vaccine. That's the end of the analysis.
So this particular community, yes, but because vaccine hesitancy, and let's be very clear, vaccine hesitancy has risen most since COVID. We had it at baseline, ticking up tiny amounts. But ever since COVID, we had the most dramatic inflection point in vaccine hesitancy, and it's building every year. And so we have to take this very seriously. And I think we have to get into communities and talk to people. When I talk to you about them not having access to healthcare, we talk about maternal deserts. Well, these are pediatrician deserts. These are family practice deserts. These are places where they don't have access to community health nurses. So we have to do a better job as public health in really getting into communities and talking to people and talking to them about what vaccines do, and then talking to the rest of the community to understand why it's important that their children are immunized, because we've always had children that either didn't develop a good immune response to a vaccine and are susceptible to measles, like children that have gotten cancer therapy or immunosuppressed children. And our children really form a protective group around them, and we really want to protect our American children. So I think there is a way forward, but we have to spend a lot more time talking to people at the community level, understanding their concerns, and really work at improving vaccination levels. And I really want to thank the nurses and doctors out there that are taking care of these young children. Many of these physicians hadn't seen measles or really sick kids with measles ever in their training. So that shows you how rare it is.
Dr. Birx, I appreciate the perspective. When you want to come on and talk about what's happening in the ex-urban and rural areas and what needs to be addressed, you got a platform for it right here on NewsNation. Take care, and it's good to see you.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll be right back.
5 years, the MDA community has pushed the science,
shifted the narrative,
and established the field of neuromuscular medicine.
And until that day when this is all a thing of the past,
you couldn't stop us if you tried.
Join us and celebrate 75 years of breakthroughs at MDA75.org.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
Interesting. You know, Elon loves running with conspiratorial notions. The headline is First Measles Death in Decade Raises Vaccination Concerns. It's misleading. Why? Is it the first death in decades? Yeah, that we know of. And it's a younger person. It's a child, right? That's especially upsetting. Is it related to vaccines? Yes, it is. So does this point the finger at people who are exaggerating the concerns about the COVID vaccine and now not taking any vaccines? Not really. This is a Mennonite community, and they have a religious objection to lots of different types of medicinal practices and practices in general. So is this about vaccine hesitancy? Yes, but not pandemic-related vaccine hesitancy. This is a